Good evening, everybody. First of all, I want to thank everybody for showing up, and if we can maybe try in a second to get our Zoom guests up on the screen. We will have some special guests joining us over Zoom. Thank everybody for showing up. Again, we have a really fantastic panel that we're very honored to have join us this evening of many people who have experienced at least one fire rebuild in Malibu. I know Corey here at least has experienced two, and there's just so many lists of things that come up naturally as people encounter this process, and things that come up that you might not even anticipate. And so the purpose of this event really, number one, is to hear experiences and lessons learned from people who know what to do and have some valuable insight to share with us all. This meeting will be recorded, so people who were unable to attend will be able to view and continue the dialogue. There will be many meetings with many suggestions on what could have gone better and what can be done better for next time. And there will be many opportunities to talk about that. But really tonight, I would like us to do our best to steer the conversation in a direction that is focused on, as I mentioned, what would be helpful for somebody, short term, intermediate term, longer term, because this will, as we all know, affect everybody in Malibu for many years to come. And it will take a really unified effort to rebuild. Even as many people, as you will hear tonight, such as Diane and Matthias, are still rebuilding from Woolsey. And so we have a lot of work to do. And so let's begin with introducing some people who I hope will speak and share some wisdom with us tonight. As I mentioned, Diane Moss and Matthias Von Bank. We have Corey Buckner back here. Up front, we have Barbara Ferris and Stephen O'Neill. We have Ryan Valencia from our State Assembly member Jackie Irwin's office joining us this evening. And our State Assembly member Jackie Irwin and State Senator Ben Allen are up in Sacramento tonight, and we're hoping that they'll be able to join us and share a few words over Zoom later in the evening. We have Jenny Pietro, Waterhouse Pietro up here, and our Mayor Doug Stewart. So without further ado, I know Barbara and Stephen have to leave a little early tonight. Let's get started with them. Gina, do you have any words you'd like to share?
No, I think it's just time to get started. So I'm going to go ahead and give the mic because it's easier for the Zoom people to hear, and pass it over to you guys to start. Hi, is that good? Okay. Hi, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to those of you who are our local neighbors, and to anyone who is here as a result of losing their home or loved ones losing their home. It's a really profound moment. We're just 3 weeks into it. It's hard to believe, but the thing, I've been counseling people since 4 days after, because Steve and I lost our house in Woolsey, and we live just down the street on Wandermere. We fortunately rebuilt after 3 years. So we've been home for 3 years, and it really feels like home. So when Hap asked us to come tonight, to anybody who's listening and anyone who's feeling pretty down in the dumps, there is light. It's a long, dark tunnel, but there is light there. And Malibu is a great place to rebuild. Let me just tell you, don't believe what anybody says, how hard it is. Malibu came and showed up for us, our community. We, for at least for the first 2 years, we kept looking at each other going, what are we doing? We're in our 60s. Why should we go back? That's like one of the first questions, actually, you asked yourself. And in this Palisades and all of our neighbors in Sunset Mesa and all these areas, there's a lot of people who are in their 80s and 90s. And this is a significant question that your friends, family, and perhaps yourself will be facing. But you don't have to answer that question right now. Just, just realize that it's a question, should I rebuild or not? What I've witnessed already in the last 3 weeks is this like, we're going to rebuild, we got to do this, we got to do that. And then it sort of foments this expectation that it's going to take place soon. But living out here in Malibu, we kind of know PCH, it's not going to be very soon. We're going to have to come up with solutions or alternative approaches to continue living our lives. The fire, when it happened to us, was so shocking. You know, when you live on Wandermere, you just figure it's not never going to happen to you. So of course you don't take anything except my dirty laundry and some bills because I thought I'd be out for 3 days. But this expectation and even seeing some predatory behavior, we need to support each other as a community and protect people from making some bad decisions. I've already seen families who, in panic or in shock or just like that brain fart area, accepting things that they just don't need to do right now. So to get this show on the road, my first advice is everybody safe, find a place to live, you know, say yes to everybody. Say yes to your friends, your family, say yes. Many of us aren't those people. We're the givers. We're the ones who take care of everybody. So when it happens to you, there is a tendency to say, no, 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 we're okay. And, you know, the shock of it all, and you're not really familiar with asking for help. So say yes. And Steve and I had a hard time with that in the beginning, but our kids came through big time. And so that was, but then after you say yes, make sure you're in a safe place. You got to file the insurance claim if you have insurance. If you don't have insurance, that's a whole other lane. But tonight, I think we're going to talk about insurance, unless does anybody have concerns about being uninsured? Maybe we'll address that in a different way. But I think many people are insured, many people will be underinsured, and you got to file a claim. I imagine most people have already, but if you haven't, file a claim and demand that you get the name and phone number and all the contact information for your individual adjuster. Once you do that, the checks should start coming in. But I want to suggest to Jackie Irwin's representative, the insurance companies are kind of messing around already. Yeah. And because I've talked to so many people, it's really, oh, and I forgot to tell you, my mom's house burned down in the Palisades. So she'd lived there for 58 years. And so we're dealing with similar things we went to 6 years ago. But the interesting little tidbit that came up last week, checks were coming in. They weren't as big as what I was encouraging everybody to demand. And, you know, it's a contract and you don't have to beg. You go in there like it's the principal's office, hoping that somebody will write you a check, but you have a contract with the insurance company. It's not negotiable. The amounts are set and they need to start paying. And our wonderful insurance commissioner has increased some of the minimums that they're. But the interesting thing that happened last week is the adjuster told me that after you fill out everything online and you have your claims, they want you to do everything online. They're not having the personal touch that we experienced 6 years ago. The landscape has changed. And so what he told me was, oh, if the check is, the insurance company just came up with this policy. If the check is over $100,000, oh, we can't do a digital deposit for you. We're going to mail you a paper check. How, this is insane. I mean, $100,000 is a lot, but what's happening is most people are getting checks much, much larger than that. The risks of, of just out of the blue coming up with this policy is insane. And I've been so busy, I haven't had a chance to either get in touch with Ben or Henry or Jackie Irwin, but please, we need this to be changed. They've encouraged us for years to do digital, mobile banking. Why all of a sudden is it not sufficient? And it's just a way to make people go insane and maybe even die. Out of 4 friends that we know in their 80s, broken hip in the days since the fire, a broken hip, a mini stroke. Well, I mean, people, older people, I consider myself one of those too. This is too much. A paper check, like your brick and mortar bank doesn't even exist anymore. Where are you supposed to go deposit it? Where are you going to have to drive to Culver City to pick up your mail? It was cruel. It was cruel. And this just happened Friday. So I'm just still asking people, maybe it's just this particular insurance company, but they should be forbidden from doing that. So I'm going to take a breath.
Hi, excuse me, I'm Barbara's husband, and yeah, I don't know where to begin. There's so many details that you have to deal with if you've lost your house, and there's some real practical stuff about canceling your utilities because you'll continue to get charged even though your house is destroyed. Um, Getting a forbearance on your mortgage is another important step people should think about because you want to get some relief because you're likely in a stressed financial condition. And we've been counseling, I don't know, probably now 20 different people. We're both lawyers, which kind of gives us, I guess, a bit of an advantage of negotiating with insurance companies. But I do want to stress the aspect of the relationship that Barbara made, that your insurance policy is a contract. So 1-year contract, you have to renew it every year. We hope we can renew it next year, but we'll see. But if you've made your premiums, you've honored the contract, and now it's time for the insurance company to honor their obligations. And I have a lot of some clients in the Altadena area. It's kind of a different, of course, demographic than the Palisades. It's a little shocking to see the money flowing pretty well in the Palisades, but they're much more stubborn with Altadena. And I don't know why that is, but I think we've seen some disparate treatment in those 2 communities. Gosh, I don't know where else to begin. I've been involved in just starting to get involved. This is really kind of thinking forward about trying to get a fire-safe community established for our neighborhood. I know, it's a statewide program that CAL FIRE runs that allows for there'll be money for communities to get together and get organized about firefighting and fire prevention and all those kind of essential issues. Malibu West is the only one that has one that I know of in this area. And, Windermere kind of makes sense. Maybe Windermere Point Doom Club, it's geographically concise, but it's a very interesting concept. And, selfishly, I think we should think about doing something like that as a community, not only because hopefully we'll get more hardened structures and more hardened landscaping, but we'll also maybe get some relief from insurance companies. If you do have if you're designated a fire-wise community, or if you're a fire-safe neighborhood, perhaps we can get a little more relief from the insurance companies. I just see that train coming down the road, and I think it's going to be a big premium for a lot of us in the next few years. So with that, just want to say thanks for all your attention. But do you have something else to say?
Yeah, but thanks for mentioning that. I'm going to circle back to people who are dealing with displacement right now. Families, we just met our neighbors with school-age kids in Malibu schools, and our neighbor rebuilt, then sold the house to somebody who lives in Cheviot Hills, so it's their second home. I'm happy to report that they are renting to a Malibu Sunset Mesa family, so they can continue to attend our schools. And so this is something we all can maybe do to help our neighbors and friends, is think about a garage. Maybe you have an ADU, maybe a neighbor of yours just needs a little encouragement. We called our neighbor and said, hey, and he was already on it. We have another rebuild that, again, was bought by someone from out of town. And they're having a burnout family live there too. So this is one avenue that those of us who haven't experienced the loss this time can do to help out. Even if you're going on a vacation, we're going to our daughter's wedding for 2 weeks. And so we have friends from Las Flores who will be, they haven't decided yet. Not everybody decides right away where they're going to rent a house, sign a lease. They're just not ready yet. And so they'll stay here amongst their community, because you don't just lose your house, you lose your friends, your community, your tennis game, you're watching football with your friend, your neighbors. I mean, whatever it is, when you're displaced, it's so much more than just your home. So if you guys, if you haven't lost your home, maybe you can reach out to your friends that way and just remember to always include them. Or, everybody's confused at times like this. What can we do? What can we do? So another idea that our kids came up with, and we've been suggesting this a lot, is at some point, these, let's call them survivors, extreme weather survivors, okay? We're not gonna call them victims. We called ourselves burnouts, but I think extreme weather survivor kind of sums it up where we are in 2025. They will need to outfit an apartment, a house. They have nothing. Most people took a roller, and like I said, some dirty laundry and, a toothbrush. Our daughter thought of this idea, and it's a wonderful one. She set up a wedding registry for us. And there are many different online services. The one we used was called Zola.com. And people from all over the world were saying, what can we do? Think of when you're our age, a lot of people, and it's a big fire. And our friends in the Palisades, their Irish friends, their wish list, they did one on Amazon, but we did ours on Zola. Their wish list was filled within 3 days. And it's just it's a win-win, because you can hold off getting it delivered until you know where you're actually going to live. And then the other thing is, there's a wide range of how people can help you out. And so I know there's a lot of GoFundMe's, and that's fine, but this is so personal. And even to this day, I know everything in my kitchen. I know who sent it during that first couple of months. So that's a way that you can help out. But you might need to make the site for them, because people who are going through this right now, it's a very traumatic process to just even go into a store. And people are saying, oh, but they just sent you this big check, and just go shopping. And it is so painful. It really, some people can do it. I couldn't do it. It just is too laden with memories, and it's overwhelming. So with this setup, with some online way to shop, and then they can decide when to have it delivered. Anyway, that's a great suggestion. I wanted to also mention the forbearance. So this is more technical, and those of friends of ours who are in their 80s and 90s, many don't have a mortgage anymore. So this advice doesn't apply to someone without a mortgage. They're in a little bit easier position, because I'm going to describe to you what happens when you do have a mortgage. So when you have a mortgage, it's a security interest in the house. You know, they don't own the land. So, I mean, you still own the land, but there's no improvement on the land. So it has two consequences. One, you must continue to pay the mortgage because you have a contract and, oh, there's no house there, but you owe the bank the money. And then the other consequence is the tax assessor. So I think this word is getting out because you can have your house reassessed during the downtime. You know, you will continue to pay the proper property taxes once a house is rebuilt. But during the time it's not, you will only have to pay taxes most likely on the land portion on your property tax bill. But the first part is the forbearance. So I believe, but somebody questioned this and I don't know for sure. I thought FEMA somehow mandated that all the banks had to give a three-month forbearance, but I don't know this. Okay, most banks offer 3 months, and in our particular situation, we were able to extend it almost a year and a half, and that really helped us because to have to pay the mortgage on top of everything else, in our particular situation, it was large enough that not having to pay it just gave us a little bit of relief. But that doesn't mean it gets forgiven. Forbearance just means it gets deferred. So at the end, you have to come up with you have to choose. There's 3 choices they'll give you. Pay it all off now, increase your mortgage payment and add it onto what you're already paying, or tuck it on the back end and do it as a balloon payment. And so every individual is going to have, but don't think that you only get the first choice because there are 3 choices. The first choice is pay it off, and some people go, oh, forget it. It's just not worth it. You know, it's one more thing to worry about. But you have those 3 choices when you get out of forbearance. The second thing about the lender, and this was a real surprise. So those of you who are starting to get checks, this is the surprise, because there's a security interest. The big check for the dwelling, which is the coverage A, if anybody's looked at their insurance policy, it's made out to your lender and you. Oh, because they don't want you to fly the coop, you know. So now all of a sudden, it's going to take you like 10 days to negotiate this check because you have to FedEx it to Minnesota or wherever they manage all this. And then this big check, because this is your coverage A, the dwelling coverage, it's going to be held in escrow. And each lender has a protocol for how to access your money. And this is it's a real kicker. It is so shocking to realize that, I just got the money to rebuild my house, and wait a minute, it's over in the escrow account, and what if I have to pay my contractor, or if I'm signing a contract with the architect, now I have to, anyway, but just be prepared. This is how it goes. It's going to be in an escrow account, and it will be until you get the certificate of occupancy. The way the protocol is in percentages. And so you get like 20% upon signing a contract, and then another 30%, there's very set accomplishments in the rebuild process, but they withhold 10% until you get the C of O. And I was really upset about this. So I negotiated a higher interest rate. They were going to give you like the checking book interest rate, like 0.25 or something, and they're holding a lot of money for a long time. So everybody should know, give it a go. I don't know if your bank or your lender will do it, but kill them with kindness and just tell them your story, and maybe they'll give you a higher interest rate. Okay. it's worth a try. It's, most people I've talked to have go, I can negotiate my interest rate? And, yeah, you can. And maybe you'll just get a really great banker that day. So be sure and write down the banker's, the person's name and phone number, and treat them with respect, because they have a very difficult job right now. A lot of people aren't being very kind to the service people. So anyway, that's my insurance thing, the forbearance, and okay, you take over, and then.
I'm going to pass the microphone to Jackie Irwin's rep. And I just wanted to bring to the table the whole issue of Penal Code 396. And that because it's, I think yeah, and it's, it's just a curious formula that the legislature used, in my view, to tie if you haven't rented within the last year, to tie the rent to a HUD number for LA County, which I think is keeping, hundreds, perhaps thousands of homes off the rental market at a time when we really need them, because you can't get fair market value. So anyway, I just wanted to bring it. We've already written Henry Stern about it, and he says he's looking at it, but I'd urge Assemblymember Irwin to take a look as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara and Steve. I mean, unfortunately, the best advice comes from, folks that have experienced it at the end of the day, and we thank you for sharing that and being strong and being here. My name is Ryan of Valencia. I'm the district director for Assemblymember Irwin. It's a pretty large district, 450,000, and as you might know, we're kind of new to the west side, having gained in the redistricting process Malibu and Palisades and Brentwood and Topanga. So in the case of Palisades Fire, everything that was affected. We're unfortunately not strangers to this type of tragedy. Back when I was formerly district director for Assemblymember Christy Smith, and we had just been elected when we were recovering from the Woolsey fire. And Assemblymember Irwin was, as a resident of Thousand Oaks, knowing so many that were affected in that fire as well. And we remember very, very clearly going to sleep one night thinking it was going towards Camarillo, and in the middle of the night realizing, nope, it's coming here towards Malibu. And so it just seems as though it can't catch a break. And so just part of the reason that our office exists is to provide as much support as we can. Our district office, it's located in Thousand Oaks, but our other office was in the Palisades, actually, on Via de la Paz. It burned down. It was right next to Pali Elementary, as well as we saw just the other day we were walking the street there, and to have Palisades YMCA gone as well, that was right across the street. It's devastating. Right now, our staff has been located at the Disaster Recovery Center, and that's the big thing we're trying to get the word out about, is going to the DRC, because we have local and county and state and federal agencies all in one place. Currently, it's over at UCLA Research Park. That's right on Pico in Westwood, and getting the applications that you need done there. So if you do know neighbors that don't exactly know where to start, that is somewhere that we recommend, so that they can do their FEMA applications there, they can do their SBA applications there, they can talk to Public Works there. City of Malibu has a booth there as well. DMV is there processing, driver's licenses, everything that you need is going to be there, as well as debris removal information. But our job as your representatives is for after that center closes, right? It's the follow up with all those different state agencies, and so calling us is going to be imperative if you're running into issues where somebody's not communicating. And to your point of insurance companies, I mean, that's the common one that we're hearing right now, is that insurance won't call me back, or my lender won't call me back. And to answer your question, it isn't mandated on the forbearance side per FEMA. It's a voluntary program that exists per the governor trying to get as many folks to agree to do it, and many of the major lenders have, but no, unfortunately, it can't be mandated. Furthermore, on the moratorium side, if that the insurance commissioner put out, it is a year moratorium that exists. So many folks, I know I got a call from a couple folks that, luckily their insurance was going to be canceled, and now they have an extension to that by a year. Um, Part of the state's role in all this, it's interesting because the disaster itself is being led on the local and federal level by large, but where the state can step in or step out of the way. That's another big one. For example, coastal commission regulations that, slow down the rebuilding process. We're trying to, ensure that stays streamlined. That's where we fit in. So just recently, the most recent action we took was a $2.5 billion disaster relief bill. That was really directed at immediate relief. I know I received a few questions about, well, what about some of the long-term infrastructure stuff that will likely be included in the June budget bill that we have to meet the deadline for, but this was kind of the more immediate side. Of that 2.5 billion, for example, it was ensuring that we're supporting schools that are rebuilding. It's ensuring that we're streamlining the recovery and rebuilding process for our residents, as well as just keeping folks in homes somewhere, rental relief or what have you. So, that's kind of where the legislature is at this moment. As we go along here, I appreciate hearing things like that, like getting a paper check. My gosh, that makes no sense. So that way we can bring it up to our federal partners as well in this. And so if you do have any experiences that you want to share, bill ideas that you want to share, that's what our district office is here to do. We're a proud staff of 4 to cover the 450,000 constituents in 10 cities that we have. But we're all from here. That's the beauty of it. So this is very personal to us. I'm a Simi Valley kid. That's where I grew up, and so this is it's pretty heartbreaking to hear of your stories. And so just know that we're here through it all with you. And I know that the member just appreciates the kindness that you have shown your neighbors. And this is a district that I think is defined by volunteerism. A lot of CNE folks ask me, how are we even connected to Malibu or Palisades? And it's the volunteerism and the truly the neighborly feel, small town feel of places like Malibu. So yeah, I'll leave it there. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions.
I actually wanted to stop for a second just because we have you here, Ryan. I know there's a few people who might have some specific questions for you. So I thought I'd pass the mic around if anybody wants to raise their hand and ask him any questions. And then just be patient because Ryan might not know the answers to every question, but we do know that you'll take them back to the assembly member's office and do your best to get those answers for us. And if anybody's on Zoom right now and would like to put the questions in the chat, Hab can ask those too. So I'll go first with anyone in the audience. Does anyone here want to ask a question? I think Alicia has big eyes.
Yeah, I first of all, I've got to tell you, I think that you're just a font of information, and I think we're really lucky to all be sitting here and listening to all of this. I think because it's been really illuminating to hear from someone who's actually experienced it. We know it, just pragmatically what we should be doing, but this is pretty incredible and really impressed by you. I think insurance is a long-term issue. I think that is where the state legislature can help us. I think it's been an issue for a long time. I appreciate that, Ricardo has extended it for a year, but I think that's just the beginning. And it should be, first of all, the fact that where they're able to cancel in the state of California, so many of them have always said that they're going to leave, and then they cancel everybody, and then they leave, but they come back because honestly, 40 million people is a lot of people, and they're never going to abandon the state of California. So we have leverage. I think it's time for our legislature to do something about it. You shouldn't be able to sell auto and not sell home. You should not be able to cancel without sufficient notice. And where I'm worried, more importantly, for those of us who, really have not been affected this time, is our insurance, our premiums are going to go up beyond what people can afford. And some people can cover it when it doubles, triples in a year. Others cannot. And it's unfair to do that, especially when you've never had a claim or anything like that. I really think that insurance should be a major issue in terms of what happens in the future.
It is, yeah, absolutely. I can say with all certainty that it is 100% a priority issue for this legislature. You know, it's a little bit difficult because a lot of it does land on kind of the responsibility of the insurance commissioner. What I can speak to the most significant change has been the modeling of how they make those decisions. So in the past, and this is the hard part of the timing of this fire, in the past, a lot of it is based off of, oh, what kind of fires have happened in the past, right? It's taking a look 10 years back and saying, is this a worthwhile area to cover? So the insurance commissioner's most recent change that began just at the beginning of this year has been about taking a look at the next 10 years. You know, it's about forecast modeling rather than looking back. Because, for example, if you look back, you're going to look at this area and go, oh, well, Woolsey happened. This is not an area that we want to cover. Versus more proactively taking a look at a place and saying, what kind of home hardening is happening? What kind of clearances are happening? And so it's a more proactive means of looking at an area. And so it's just unfortunate that we haven't had time for that modeling to really take place in order to have greater coverage, but that was kind of the hope of the insurance commissioner in those new regulations. So, but I 100% agree with you. It is top of mind as to what we're supposed to do going forward.
2 points. One, I'm a lawyer. You do not have to hire a lawyer now. Wait. There are lawyers who are advertising all over the place. That's something that happened later, not necessary now. The other one is a question. Many people have Fair Plan, which I believe has $3 million in total coverage, and that includes additional living expense, contents, and structure. That is not enough to rebuild a house. A lot of people will spend a lot of their money on excess additional living expense. Is anything going to be done to fix that? Has it been done to fix it? And am I right that it's $3 million for all of those?
I unfortunately I have to defer to one of the Department of Insurance representatives. You know, all I can say on that is that, you know, the Fair Plan unfortunately was not meant to be a major provider of insurance in the state. It was the insurance of last resort. But unfortunately, due to the current state of things, it is a major insurance coverage for a lot of people in California. So it was not built for it. They're actively trying to make the adjustments to meet the moment. I will have to get you in touch with the Department of Insurance Commissioner, Department of Insurance representative to address more of that question, though.
I just had one, and perhaps Mayor Stewart could address it as well. When you talk about hardening, we were pretty good stewards of our home in terms of brush clearance and everything, but really, even in Malibu, where it's semi-rural, you're really subject to what your upwind neighbors are doing. And when I look at now this, in some ways, it's a weird opportunity in these like Alphabet Streets, for example, in the Palisades. Is there going to be any, either at the legislative level or, you know, in a model building code or at the city level, any kind of requirements that people, because the materials are there. We've built a very fire-resistant home and met all the landscaping codes, but we use, on our own initiative, we use very fire-safe materials, fiber cement, concrete, steel eaves, no vents, et cetera. And so I was wondering if there's any discussion about moving forward, if there's going to be any kind of building standards that are going to be required in that realm.
Yeah, so, and that was a concern that folks brought up to us because they're like, well, if you're fast tracking things, how are you ensuring that it's also meeting kind of those new hardening rules? And they will be. That is not something that is going to be put to the side as folks are doing that. They will, those new rules will be in place.
Well, let me just address that it's a great question, because one of the things we're stressing to everybody is rebuild your old house plus 10%, up to 10%. What's missing in that statement is you're going to have to bring it up to the current code. And the current code was developed by the fire marshal, the state fire marshal. And as you were saying, you know, you've got, instead of wood siding, you have fiber cement siding, and so on and so on and so on. So the idea is to make the houses not fireproof, fire resistant. Fire Chief Maroney had a great comment the other night, and I've heard him say it before, about how they're going to defend houses in a fire. And I will share with you that the firefighters that were on the line on PCH, actually, and the story was the top of the fire trucks, pumper trucks have a water cannon that puts out 600 gallons a minute. The wind was so strong that when the water left the cannon, it went that way. They couldn't get it on the house. Trying to defend your house in that kind of conditions is not going to happen. Maroney's comment was, you're going to have to rely upon your house to defend itself. Now that's a big statement. And going back to your comment about Firewise and so forth, the city has fire liaisons that work with various communities, and they're in our Public Safety Commission department, and they will come out and help you get that started, as well as do the home inspections. I can't tell you how important it is to try and get your house safe. Personally, my own house has been burned over twice. We had a 2007 fire and a Woolsey fire. The house defended itself. And that's the only reason why I'm here in that house, is because it saved itself. So I encourage everybody, when you think about rebuilding your house, or even the house that you have, it doesn't hurt to walk around, and with our fire inspections for home hardening, they can tell you things to do to protect your house, and you might want to encourage your neighbors to do it as well. So it's part of the new culture we're going to have to live in, and I think Maroney's comment is the one that, if I don't leave you with many things tonight, your house is going to have to defend itself, which also means that your neighbors' houses have to help defend yourself.
And I think part of kind of as we go through the rebuilding process and lessons that we're learning from other communities that have been affected is creating some of those templates for others to follow, instead of having to kind of sit there and figure out with a design and plan, what am I supposed to do here and there. Hopefully, and this is kind of the vision, is to have an actual one-stop shop in the communities affected, and that way they can actually go from agency to agency and have things figured out, and actually have a library of template fire resistant home hardening improvements that folks can just take and put into the design already.
One program that we benefited from was the city of Malibu waived the permit fees if you kept within the 110% same footprint primary residence. And it was so helpful. It meant we were fighting this together. And I would really encourage the Assemblywoman and anybody else who's decided, it might be a city of LA, but maybe Malibu will have an opportunity to do a similar thing, because if you've never built before, it was like, wait a minute, we didn't want to remodel our house. Why is this going to be another added expense? So if we need to come to the city council meeting, let us know and we'll show up. But that would be a really the right thing to do right now in this moment.
My statement is about the neighbors and the upwind and them not doing anything about cutting their trees, cutting the dead branches. My house is immaculately away from everything. I'm upwind from them. Their trees almost touch our house. No one's making them remove them. Years ago, the Woolsey, before the Woolsey, we weren't in town. I called the fire department on them because they had all these dead trees in the backyard. This is before the fire. I mean, I didn't even know. I just had a feeling they needed to cut them. And they came and they made them cut them. Well, all the dead branches are all there again. They're not doing a thing. Yeah, pine trees that drip all over my wood. Is there anything our government can do about that?
Well, first off, there is a requirement that you maintain your house with fire safety lines. If it's a residential property, your local fire station, it's 71, 70, 99, 88, whichever one it might be, just call them up and tell them that you've got this problem, and they will come out and do an inspection. Right now, they're still knocking the dust off and the dirt off the fire trucks. Give them a day or two. If it's an open pasture area, open space, the agriculture department, surprisingly enough, the same people that check the gas tanks, gas gauges at the gas station, are the ones that come out and do the inspection for open space. Unfortunately, the state parks, MRCA, don't have to do anything. And that's an issue that we are working on at the city level, and we'll see how much we can get accomplished there. But you are able to do a 200 feet defensible space into the state park area. So I think you have to pay a permit for it. You can, whoever the property owner is, MRCA, state parks can tell you what the rules are. But don't be bashful about cutting back your brush. Everybody that's house got saved in a typical brush fire, not a hurricane fire, is able to look at that defensible space and say, that saved my house.
Gonna be in stereo. So best of times, worst of times. It's just in the pavilions getting some LaCroix water for you guys and us. And there was a woman that was bagging the groceries who had lost her home. And she said, I'm so triggered. What's wrong with me? I can't handle this. The wind came up. I smelled the air. All of a sudden, I thought I was going to lose my mind. And I said, well, we're the walking wounded. So whomever in this room, is anybody, who lost their house in the Woolsey fire? Yes, Woolsey, 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 Woolsey. Okay. So we got a lot of walking wounded in this room. And we've got a walking, this huge number of walking wounded in Altadena and Pasadena, and where the black and brown people are, doesn't seem to be, there's a lot of, media coverage about that or talk. But, I don't think, that's not coincidental in my mind. It is a real difficult power struggle to deal with the fire and its aftermath. I am a mediator. I have been called from people from Lahaina. I'm also have a Hawaiian background, a little bit, this much, and was amazed at how similar the human struggle was with the families in Lahaina who did not have deep pockets, who could not hire lawyers and mediators, etc. So obviously, I don't know if it's obvious, my services are pro bono. That's because there are lots of barracuda, snakes are nice, sharks are nice, slithery, slimy people coming around the carpetbaggers who are attempting to take advantage of our vulnerability. So I would say, and I don't feel like I'm preaching to the choir because we're not all choir members, but we all are human, and we ought to be able to look at each other in the eye and say, hey, how you doing? So Kevin, my best friend, showed up after the fire, just showed up. That's all she needed to do. Show up, just show up. And, I know Connie just lost her home. Is there anybody else who lost their home in this most recent fire? Your mom. Yeah, right. And in many ways, we can't extend our arms far enough to get beyond the roadblock on PCH for our neighbors. So when people could freely come and give us loving support, there was a different logistical issue there that made it at least possible. I went to my yoga class this morning, and I've been doing yoga for 40 years. And I have been dizzy the last couple of days, and it has to do with the night terrors came back after the original fire that I was in. And I drove back into the fire. And for the first time today, I felt that imbalance in my psyche, my nervous system, my adrenals were going, and I was not able, 40 years in yoga, to do a couple of the most simplest poses. I finally fell over, literally fell over, and was able to say to the women in my yoga class in my yoga group, who had gotten together all throughout COVID, and this is after the Woolsey fire, to support one another in getting through this monster that took us over and beat us up and left us on the ground for dead. Okay, so if Connie can show up here today, I would just say, you know, for you and for everyone who lost their homes before, I have a skill set. It is mediation. I can help people get in a room and resolve their problems. But what happens in this kind of situation is that we all must sue our insurance companies and give 20% of our building funds over to the lawyers, because we're told that without a kick-ass law firm, right? This is what the people that I went to law school with told me. We must have a big-ass firm that can just scare the holy hell out of everybody and get it. And that's what I had to do. And many people I know had to do was, we're just going to give away 20% of our building fund. Same with the suit against SCE. Liability now is a friggin' major thing. And if the people of the Palisades can't prove that SCE was responsible, where do they go? Where do they turn? These are the deep-pocketed people. Where do the people in Altadena and Pasadena, north of, Colorado? That's where real people live. There are real people in Palisades, and there are real people in Malibu. And so the story has to be told from the point of view, I think, of those who have not had the opportunity to get on media and hold the microphone like I'm holding it now and really communicate. Because how are we going to get beyond this little conclave of privileged people, right? Here we are. We got to reach out to Altadena for real. And my dear friend Diane is here. And I would love to hear. She has talked to me and others a lot about how can we take the experience of Northern California, various, city, state, and federal partnerships, and using community resources to, after the fires, actually recover. And I would hope that I could pass the microphone to her at least for a minute or two.
I want you to, but we just heard that our wonderful state senator, Ben Allen, has zoomed in from Sacramento. And we're having technical difficulties with our TV.
He can come after Diane.
And I think, yeah. And I don't know if we're getting double feedback right now, but let me see if I can, yeah, okay, here's.
Yeah, I'm here, guys. Hey there. Hi, Ben. Can you hear? Okay. Hey, everybody. Nice to see you. I'm actually still in LA. I'm flying up. I've been here for the day, and I'm going back to Sacramento. In fact, I'm going to be heading to the airport in about 15 minutes, so I can take some of it from the car. But thank you. I loved hearing the previous speaker, who I think is just speaking to the pain and the difficulty of all this, and not just, obviously, especially for those who have lost their homes, but I think for everybody involved, it's been such a difficult few weeks. And just today, among many things, I got a chance to meet with the folks from After the Fire, which was a really interesting experience. as you all know, they're a group that involves people who were impacted by a lot of the recent fires, everything from Lahaina to Colorado to Malibu, Woolsey, Santa Rosa, Paradise, etc. And they've been going around providing support and human connection and interaction and empathy, but also information about what it's like to rebuild and recover. I think, of course, Malibu's already got a built-in network on that topic, unfortunately, because we've had so many fire disasters in town. I think for the Palisades, it's been a particularly shocking and disorienting experience. And a lot of the people are really struggling to just get basic information. And one of the challenges that I've had, quite frankly, I've been on these town hall panels, and they end up involving a lot of bureaucrats from big agencies that come in. And a couple of weeks ago, they were in North Carolina dealing with floods. Now they're here helping people with fires, and they really they're good people. They know about cleanup, for example, but they don't. They're not always very public facing. And I think when people are asking them basic questions like, how long will it take for me to get back into my home, a lot of them are so afraid to give the wrong answer because they'll get pulled in front of Congress and excoriated. So they don't give anyone any concrete, I'm not asking for concrete answers. I'm just asking for ballpark answers. And they're so unwilling to even offer those, partly because they genuinely don't know. But it's good for people who've been through these before to weigh in and give people some reasonable expectations. Because a lot of folks are just trying to plan their lives, right? I mean, do I get a 6-month lease or a 2-year? Or do I re-enroll my kids in school? What do I do about my business or my home office? Or how do I think about the rebuilding process? And, for most people have never built a home before. Those that have, very few of them have ever had to build on a toxic ash site. It's such a unique set of circumstances. And quite frankly, the elected officials are all, it's pretty new for us. I mean, Henry, as you all know, our good friend Henry had gone through this many times before, and thankfully has brought a lot of really good information and help, as has our Senate President Pro Tem, who represented Santa Rosa and Lake County and has gone through this before. So I'm really grateful to have the support and kind of feedback and help from other colleagues who have been through this before. But I think you're seeing one of the challenges of the mayor of Los Angeles and a lot of the county bureaucracy is dealing with is just a lack of familiarity as to how exactly the process works for something so catastrophic as the Palisades fire, which is just it's so shocking to walk those neighborhoods, in the heart of the Palisades, and of course to see Big Rock gone and to see so much of Sunset Mesa impacted and the PCH, and it's just the whole thing's been so heartbreaking. And I've been commiserating a lot with my staff. My staff they're really hardworking people. I think that there's an extra heaviness to this work. There's because the subject matter is so difficult. So I really appreciate almost the therapeutic comments that were just made, because I think we're all struggling to get through this and help each other. And that's ultimately what this is all about. The state has stepped up with major money, $2.5 billion most recently, to help with the cleanup efforts. Hopefully that will all be, recompensed, reimbursed by the federal government. Cal OES is providing support, but largely it's the operation is being carried out by US EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers, with oversight and cooperation from local government, particularly in your case, the city of Malibu, and unincorporated areas, it would be the county. And so again, the state is involved in all sorts of different ways, but most significantly as fronting the cash, which is very significant, and also providing funding for the city of Malibu and city of LA County to help them go through a permitting streamlining process so they can really come out with an expedited but thoughtful permitting process associated with the rebuilds. We want to let people get back on their feet and rebuild quickly. We also want to make sure we learn some of the lessons from this terrible fire. And I for one, would not want to see us lessen fire regulations, fire safety, home hardening rules as people rebuild. I think that would be a terrible mistake. And I understand that some people may see that as getting in the way of the rebuild. But from my perspective, I just never want to see us go through something like this again. And it would seem a real shame to just, rebuild in a way that would just pass on this problem again to people 10, 20 years from now. What a shame would that be? So anyhow, I appreciate you guys very much. I saw many of you at the town hall the other day. Actually, we had one in Malibu, of course, on Saturday. Topanga, Malibu, and then on Saturday, and then Sunday we had a debris removal one in Santa Monica. So I know I've seen a number of you at those various town halls. Happy to answer a few questions. And then I've got to get to the airport because we've got session tomorrow, and we're going to be, the budget committee will be meeting again. And we're going to just be continuing to work on providing whatever help and support we can to this really massive cleanup and recovery effort.
Okay, we have our first question from Jane here.
Hi, Ben, it's Jane Albrecht. Thanks for all you're doing. Ben, as you well know from our town hall, so many people in Malibu are so angry, more than I've ever seen it, because for 10, 20, 30 years, they've been begging the MRCA and others in the government to start doing effective brush clearing, fire breaks, and controlled burns. You said something at the town hall that I thought was a brilliant idea. You noted that, the SMMC's mission to acquire land is a great thing, but they're not so good at managing it. And maybe it's a better idea if we have their lands managed by state parks. Is there any realistic possibility that that could happen?
I think there is a realistic possibility. I do think it involves state parks having to, they need more money. They need more ambition. I've always, they've always kind of been, at least traditionally, they were the main repository of our state lands for public use and conservation. And of course, I think over time, the conservancies have taken over the role that they traditionally played because they're more nimble and able to buy land more easily. And that's that's been an important role. But there was a time when the state parks really had a lot of ambition and they wanted to grow, and I think that's changed over time. There's been a few things that have happened. They never got over the shock of that whole scandal where some of their accountants were basically squirreling money away, not for their personal use, by the way. It wasn't embezzlement or anything like that. It was just preserving and protecting money, mainly for a rainy day for the park system within the park's budget, but they didn't adequately inform everybody that they were doing this, and that got them in big trouble. And I think ever since they just, I don't know, they've struggled, I think, from a bit of a lack of ambition. And it's one of the many things I want to work on as chair of this subcommittee that oversees their budget. So I love the park system. I mean, I think they need a little TLC. I mean, every time I go to a park, I think I talked about this a little bit. There's so much maintenance and operation that needs help, and so I do know we're meeting with Peter Uyghur for next week. We are going to be having conversations with the MRCA about their fire management. They say they have some plans, so I certainly want to hear from them. There's money in the climate bond that we did on fire mitigation. We do want to have a big kind of powwow on some individual issues with MRC, like Escondido Falls, and I've been in close contact with Halen Conrad from the council, and Captain C2 and Jackie Irwin's office and MRCA, and I think we all want to get together and just have a real kind of a real good management conversation about where that site goes. Because it's a beautiful thing and so many people love it, but there's also some downsides, as everybody knows, especially if it's not properly managed or monitored, given all the risks. So there's a lot of work on to do. As you know, Jane's met with us, and a number of you participated in conversations as we try to kind of chart a course forward. I know that the city of Malibu has been engaging conversations with the Department of Conservation, with Wade Crowfoot and others, to talk about the future of the Conservancy and its relationship with Malibu. But so there's a lot of lessons to be coming out of this, and I quite frankly don't know where all this is going to go. But I think both Jackie and I certainly heard we heard the message from folks in Malibu loud and clear the other night. And I think all of us want to do everything we can to make sure that we don't see another disaster like this. And so there's going to be some conversations. We're certainly going to engage you guys on those conversations too.
Okay, thank you. We have one more question, but speaking of Assemblymember Jackie Irwin, we see that she's joined the Zoom. And so after this question, we'll let you go to the airport and then
Great.
we'll let,
Thank you.
Assemblymember
And then I got to
Irwin
get back. Yeah, because
settle.
I got to see Jackie tomorrow in Sacramento.
Thank you so much, Senator Allen. This is Diane Moss, and I am born and raised in Malibu. Lost my home in the Woolsey fire up in
I'm sorry.
unincorporated LA County. And I so much appreciate your comments, your care, your compassion. And just from having watched this experience for the last 6 years, a couple of points. One is the neighbor who brought up the relief that Malibu City gave for the waiver of permitting fees. That has not been possible for unincorporated county folks. And we're going to be seeing people in Altadena, as well as from the Palisades fire, obviously. Only 16% of the 688 homes lost in the Woolsey fire in unincorporated LA County have been rebuilt. So there may be some folks there who are still in line to get rebuilt too. And we've been told by the county that they want to do it, but they don't have the power, and that power lies within the state. So that could be something to just put in
Oh,
a
really?
long laundry list.
Wait, why would the city be able
Yeah,
to do
give
it?
people relief, because one of the things in all of this devastation, one of the things that's going to give hope to people who want to get home and have some kind of means to get home is that kind of help.
Well, I'm really interested. We're working on a big
another
yeah.
idea that is more long-term that I've thought of is we are, especially in canyon properties, and many properties are going to need to have some on-site water. We've seen falling of water pressure. We've seen that the fire department can't get there. And so we might want to look at coastal waivers for on-site buried cisterns or small swimming pools that could bypass the coastal act, as long as they are connected to a fire suppression system with backup generation, a real viable backup water system. So those are just a couple of ideas. And I guess the last thing I would say is that, to Jenny's point, there is a lot of walking wounded. There's also wounded warriors who have a tremendous amount of experience.
Yes.
And I hope that we can marshal the experience and wisdom. I know some people here managed to get their permitting done quickly. There's wisdom, and I hope that there's an organized, systematic way that we can marshal the intelligence that has been built in the various corners over the last 6 years. Yes, and also in Northern California, where folks have managed to rebuild faster in, say, Santa Rosa, to help really the people who are going to go through the next generation of this this kind of tragedy, to help them not have to suffer quite as much. Thank you very much.
Yeah. No, appreciate those comments very much. Can't agree with you more, especially on that last point. The only question I have, maybe you can send us some information. It's strange to me that that there would be a situation where the city could do something that the county would not be allowed to do in unincorporated territory. Because usually, if it's something a city can do in their jurisdiction, the county can do in their unincorporated. So I don't know why that would be, why there'd be a distinction there, especially if it's not a coastal zone issue.
Yeah, I do see that we have Sophia Sudani John from our county supervisor, Lindsay Horvath's office, with her hand raised, who might be able to speak on that.
Okay, all right.
Sophia.
So I'm gonna go off camera and listen. But I'm actually very interested in what she says, and I'll be on my way to the airport. But I'll be listening to the rest of the meeting.
Okay, we appreciate you, Senator Allen, and
Good to
thank
see you,
you for
Hap.
taking the time to join us. Nice
Thanks,
to see
man.
you.
All right, we'll see you guys soon. Thank you, guys.
Good night. Hi, Sophia.
Hi, Hap. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Wonderful. Good evening, everybody. And I'm happy to answer that question real quick here. And, I can speak after the assembly member as well on some additional information I just want to make sure everyone was aware of. But for the building permit fees getting waived, I'm not sure who you've spoken with, and maybe I'm mishearing that information. Any fees for rebuilding? I know we have asked each of the departments to look at those fees and study them and see if we can do refunds, if we can do waivers, anything else like that, or if we can get rid of the fees altogether. That was currently just asked at the board on Tuesday to report back from each of the departments. So that is a county issue. That is something we're looking at. But if there's something else I'm missing, let me know.
Thank you. That's fantastic news.
Thank you, Sophia. Does anybody else have a question while we have Sophia up on the camera that might be relevant to county operations? Okay, we have Alicia.
Hi, Sophia. So my issue has to do with an article that came out last week that was kind of scathing about our county system and what Malibu was supposed to get in terms of infrastructure with regards to water and improvements with regards to water, and that they were never done. They were postponed. Frankly, in the scheme of things, the amounts were so small that it was just mind-boggling that they would have made a difference in some ways, while everybody continues to repeat, nothing can make a difference. As we've been told, nothing can make a difference in a hurricane fire situation, basically, 100-mile-an-hour winds. But you can do a little bit better in terms of having water capacity. And frankly, we are part of the community of the County of Los Angeles, and we do pay taxes. So it was mind-boggling to me that every time there was an opportunity to make these infrastructure, improvements, this probably precedes Lindsay, that it was never done. So what are we going to do about that? Because one of the issues is how we deal with rebuilding, how we deal with helping the wounded at this point, but it's also how we prevent things in the future and what we can do that is to better our situation, so that those of us who are surviving can also have a better chance of surviving as this happens again. So I wanted to know if that's contemplated, if that's going to be in the budget, what are those improvements? How quickly are we going to start working on those? I think, that's a pretty major issue for all of us.
I could not agree with you any further. I can't even nod my head further enough to agree with you on that front. Absolutely. And so I will touch on one of those items, and I have a couple other items I want to touch on, but for the water infrastructure component, that is a huge priority for the supervisor and for this office. Yesterday, at this point, Tuesday, the supervisor submitted a motion at the board of supervisors meeting to review LA County Water Works District 29, which services Malibu, during the Palisades fire. The motion calls for all the tools that are necessary to accelerate planned water hardening and modernization projects for the water District 29. So that was in our she just called for that motion yesterday to address that exact concern, because that is a critical, it's one of the most important things that we have right now, is making sure our water infrastructure is hardened, that we have enough water redundancy in all our communities, especially our high fire severity zone communities. So we are working on that right now as we speak. Another big thing that I just want to note as well that came through the board yesterday was our Los Angeles County wildfire fund that's being put together right now. This is establishing a $32.2 million ARPA-enabled funding that will provide direct relief to homeowners, renters, workers, small business owners, and nonprofits affected by the fires. That was another huge motion that was passed yesterday. The exact implications of that and the process to apply, we are still formulating right now, but that funding and that process is in works. And I will send that to HAP and to all our residents and our Malibu folks as well when that is finalized as well. The last point I do want to also raise is, I know for the debris removal, we also just had, as of Tuesday, was just announced of signing your ROE for debris removal phase 2. If folks need to figure out where that form is, additional information, please do reach out to myself. I want to make sure everyone's aware of that resource and that we're signing our ROEs if you would like to engage in phase 2 with Army Corps of Engineers. Those are the main updates I wanted to provide on my side of things. But again, I'm really grateful. Thank you for having me here tonight with all of you. And I'm so deeply sorry for everyone who has lost their homes, their jobs, their beautiful community. I've been going through the Pacific Palisades and Malibu and Big Rock community and all throughout our Malibu communities as well that have been affected. And it's heartbreaking. And I just want you guys to know The items that I previously mentioned are just a couple of a lot of things that we are working on every single day to make sure that you guys are getting support and wraparound services to rebuild and come back. And we're not done. This is just the beginning, but I want you to know we hear you. And whether it's water infrastructure, whether it's your businesses that were impacted, whether it's trying to figure out how you're going to rebuild and what's your permitting look like and how do I remove the debris, the county and this office is here for you and here for you every step of the way. I will put my email in the chat, and also please feel free to spread that widely as well for folks that need additional assistance, so I can help you guys with more one-on-one services. But again, thank you for having me here tonight.
Yes,
Thank you, Sophia.
We really appreciate all the hard work
that you and Supervisor Horvath and the entire team have been doing on this. One thing I wanted to speak on really quick that, people don't know a lot of the 1,000 things that go on with different government agencies trying to communicate with each other and coordinate immediate response efforts and everything that comes from there. So as many of you know, those of us who are, 10, 20 plus miles away from the burn zone on this side of town, from the Palisades fire and Franklin fires, we didn't have gas or most of our utilities for quite some time. And our county representatives were able to get us down at Bluffs Park some hot shower trailers, which, in the future, it would be great if we could get amenities like that provided within the first day or two, just because we know we can anticipate certain issues like this that are going to affect the rest of the community, that may, still have their houses standing, but may not have evacuated. And one other issue was, when the power is out on Canaan, many of us have quite long commutes into town at this point for work and school and doctor's appointments, et cetera, et cetera. And it's already 2-3 hours most days each way. And when that power's out, many of us were encountering that big 30+ minute backup on Canaan there, which was most of our artery on our detour onto the 101 freeway. And the county was good about bringing generators there, but at some point, I believe the generator malfunctioned and the same problem was back up again. So again, we sincerely appreciate all the help on issues like that, but let's be committed to doing a better job in getting those fixed within the first day or two of our next disaster that we experience, because those are things that affect many more people than just those within the burn zone. I do see that we have Assemblymember Jackie Irwin on the call. If Assemblymember Irwin would like to share a few words, or if anybody has a few questions for her.
Hi, everybody. I actually just got on the Zoom because I had an event with the first partner. So I did not hear everything that Ben had to say, but I just want to say we have been working very closely with, just as with the big issues on PCH, working very closely with the Senator's office and with the supervisor's office on the issues that you're facing. In the first few days, obviously, as Hap mentioned, it was really difficult for the community, basically north of Pepperdine, that there was no gas, there was no power, and there was no cell phone coverage. And so we have been on the phone trying to get the different utilities in gear. And I think that AT&T and T-Mobile did end up sending down vans that were providing cell phone coverage. The first few days, there was no cell phone coverage, which of course was very difficult because the fire, there would be no warning for the fire. The gas situation is really difficult. All of you know by now, the gas line goes through Pacific Palisades, and they had to make sure to completely repair that. So they ended up putting compressed natural gas in at Pepperdine. And then the PSPS issues that with Edison, I've talked to the executive vice president and told them that, told her that the community was very upset, both on the Malibu side and on all the cities that are on the other side. The members of the COG, we had a meeting with the Speaker of the Assembly, and basically there needs to be much better communication and much better transparency about the circuits that people are on, to make sure that people have knowledge when the circuits are potentially going to be coming back on, and hopefully have advance warning when they're going off, because the entire community was really suffering during those first few days. But I have no idea what Ben talked about, so I'll just stop there and see what questions that you might have.
Thank you. I think, Jane, you had a question?
Hi, Jackie. We just had a nice conversation with Ben Allen, and as you know, the upset and anger over the fire for fire purposes of the lands at the MRCA, I've never seen it so high. The reason being, people have asked for 10, 20, 30 years for brush clearance, fire breaks, controlled burns, and nothing's happened. Ben made a great suggestion at the town hall, which seemed very sensible to me. He said that it's true. The SMMC has done a great job in acquiring lands. We all are grateful for that, but he acknowledged that the management of those lands has not been very good. And he talked about the possibility of having the lands transferred, which was the original concept, to state parks, because state parks is so much better at managing lands. Two questions. Is there any realistic possibility that could happen? And if so, to what degree would the following two things require legislation? One is to mandate brush clearance, fire breaks, and controlled burns on the MRCA lands, and to actually transfer those lands to state parks for management.
I obviously was at the town hall and heard the anger. The fire did start on the state lands, not on MRC, or allegedly, I should say. I think it's going to take a few months for the investigation to finish, but we have certainly heard the complaints of Malibu residents loud and clear. And I think it's, Ben and I have both talked about doing a much deeper dive into how to make sure that the land is properly managed. Some of the stories in the Wall Street Journal were, the story in the Wall Street Journal was certainly scathing. I just need to know whether or not State Parks has really done a better job of managing the lands, because they are always short on resources. So I would be interested to hear what your experience was with these state parks land. I think in general, we need a more comprehensive plan for the Santa Monicas, and we need to make sure that the parks work very closely with the fire departments, because when you talk to fire, there's definitely things that they would want to do on those, both the MRCA or the state lands, to basically make sure that we are managing the land better for wildfires.
I have been told by Zuma J and possibly others that state does do a better job, but I agree with you. I think that's a very important question that we'll be looking into too. Frankly, the pressure is such that we've got to at least make something happen that improves. It's too much.
No. Well,
I also think during the Woolsey fire, after everything had burned, people who were neighbors got letters from the MRCA saying, we're not going to do anything to help control mudslides. That's got to change too. But the question is, what would need to happen to make those things happen? And of course, what can we do to help? And I realize you might not be able to answer all of that tonight, but we're welcome to any ideas.
Yeah, we're going to be working with Ben's office on what we can do. I think that Jane, we did talk about having having a meeting with Joe and seeing, seeing where he stands on this now. I mean, I had somebody say that he understands that there needs to be controlled burns there. So we really need to have a full discussion from wildfire experts. What is the appropriate type of management that needs to be done on that land? And again, I am really curious to see if state parks is more responsive, because we've been dealing with them on a different issue with the Topanga restoration, and they've been moving rather slowly, and it's been very difficult to get the answers for them. So we need to really figure out what the best solution is, and really have a deep discussion with MRCA on what their responsibilities are, and how we can make sure we mitigate this issue going forward. So these are just going to have to be continued discussions, and obviously Joe is very, very sensitive to it right now. His home burned also, and so he is part of your community, and obviously going through, I'm sure, all the emotions that all the rest of the folks are going through that lost their homes.
By the way, in terms of couple little facts, you're right. The Palisades did not start on MRCA property, but the Tabasco Gateway Park was right next to them with all that extra fuel. The Kenneth fire did start on MRCA land. So did the Franklin fire, and the Woolsey fire gained steam and 70-mile-an-hour winds going over MRC land. Okay, I'll to someone.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one more question.
Hi, Jackie. Howard Redsky. How are you?
Hi. Okay.
Question about PCH being open for buses and some way to bring the people that work in the local shops and restaurants and help in the homes in the Malibu, because it's getting pretty devastating. And while you're in Sacramento, if there's a way to bring Toxicanahan down, he came to the 10 freeway at the fire, and it was supposed to be a year, and it was fixed in a week. So maybe we can get some of that help, because these people are desperately in need.
And not to mention, really quick, those of us who live here. Hi, this is Hap. Those of us who live here, and as I mentioned, are having these very long commutes. I know Bill, our cameraman back there, tech team leader, was, just had to go into Playa Vista today, and that's his commute, and that's not fun right now. So is there any way for, as Howard just mentioned, a type of bus service that could not only bring workers in, essential workers who need to come to Malibu to sustain our local businesses, but also those of us who might prefer to take the bus into Santa Monica and go to work from there, versus the 4 to 6 hour round trip commute we're currently experiencing on a day-to-day basis?
I think that for the bus service, that's probably a better question for Sophia. I mean, obviously the local government would have to be providing that. And what we need to do is check on the timing of when PCH is open. A lot of it is going to be when the public safety officials decide that it is that it's safe enough. And I don't know if that's going to be after the toxics are removed. Obviously, for the first couple of days, you had telephone, you had electric poles across PCH, but it seems to me that they should be opening pretty soon, because it is an incredible economic disruption to the city of Malibu to only be able to get in and out of Canaan, and it's an incredible disruption to students, and it's an incredible disruption that to anybody that wants to go, that needs to go to Santa Monica. So we certainly will, we can talk to CHP, but I think that that's again a local a decision made by the local public safety officials. But it really does need to be opened as soon as possible. I will we're going to need to figure out when what exactly they're waiting for, whether it's going to be the phase 1 cleanup or the phase 2 cleanup, or just making sure that there's no wires, or the water and the gas are shut off. But we really do need to get PCH. I mean, we have to get that transportation opened again, that route opened again, because of the incredible disruption. I mean, Malibu has gone through a lot. Let me just say one other thing, that we are trying to get an answer from the governor, and it's been very difficult because he's really been in Southern California for most of the time. We're trying to get the Franklin fire state declaration to match basically what's happening with the Palisades and Mountain Fire, because it is really, there's a lot of benefits that the victims and the businesses that were hit by the Franklin fire are not getting, because there's no state declaration. There's only a county and city declaration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sophia, by
Sophia,
any chance, do you know when the next LA County Metro Board meeting might be, where we might be able to get some insight on the 134 line resuming?
I think I'm not sure when the next one is. I know we just had one, I think, this last week. So let me double check and I'll get back to you. I'll check in with my colleague Justin, who's our deputy for Metro and Transportation, and get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Sophia, have you gotten any news on when the one is opening, and is that a decision of the fire department, or is it a decision of LAPD? Do you have some idea on that?
Are you sorry? Which area are you talking about?
About the one about the I'm sorry, about PCH through Pacific Palisades, when that stretch is going to be opened?
I don't. I know we've been sending, and the supervisor sent a couple messages over to the governor, some letters over there as well, to try to advocate for how we can get it reopened as quickly as possible. I know each day with LAPD and with sheriffs, they are reevaluating and seeing where they can move those buffers. Are there checkpoints at all? And so those are, I think we got about 3 checkpoints left, but I think in all realism as well, even if we get all those checkpoints eventually removed, which is the goal, there is going to be, there's down power lines, there is going to be congestion that we're going to see on the PCH. Even when it's fully quote unquote open, we are going to see some level of congestion, because I'm not quite sure when we're going to see full levels of all lanes of traffic opened. But I think the first point is, how can we get through lanes of at least one lane of traffic going through throughout the PCH? And at this point, I don't have an estimated time frame for when that's going to be happening, but I know that our law enforcement is working hand in hand with Caltrans to see, when as soon as possible as they can allow traffic through, they will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe
one question.
So, hi, Jackie. I think this is a multiple jurisdiction question. Can we talk about Edison and power lines and what we're going to do as people are rebuilding? I hope that there's some thought about maybe starting to finally underground some of these power lines. And I think that would be smart. And can we talk about how we start forcing them and having the city support, city council support, doing that for other parts of Malibu as well? Because at this point, it's just become preposterous. I get why they're doing it. I understand the shutoffs. However, it is at this point so difficult. Also, we don't have microgrids. It's like they shut off the entire city of Malibu at the same time, which is kind of preposterous. If something is happening in Point Dume, the western part shouldn't be Malibu West shouldn't be shut off. If something's happening there, this one shouldn't be shut. I mean, we need microgrids and we need undergrounding. And you guys have, the governor has oversight over the PUC. The state legislature has some impact on the PUC. Is there something that we can do in some way to force Edison and to work with the city to try to figure out how to better our electrical infrastructure? Gas was an anomaly, and I get that. And what happened with the company is just something that's never been done before as we talk to them. But electricity is happening more and more and more frequently.
So that's a really good question. I will say that the legislature seems to have no power over the PUC at all. It's really, they're all governor appointees, and every bill that I've had to try to reform utilities has been killed along the way. So so this is really a kind of a governor's call. I will tell you there was a bill last year that would have simplified creating microgrids, and right at this point, the utilities don't like that because it takes some of their business away. But it is really critical for redundancy. Obviously, we've seen when the gas is down that the generators that run on natural gas aren't working. So it is really a problem. The good news is that Edison, like I said, I spoke to the senior VP last week. The lines along PCH are going to be undergrounded, and a number of the lines that went down in the fires are also going to be undergrounded, because at this point the cost differential is not that great between putting them back up in the air and undergrounding them. And they're just moving pretty slowly with undergrounding, and part of it is that, you know, it's incredibly expensive and it's incredibly time consuming, but it certainly makes sense to do it in your area. But that goes again to the letter that we're writing to the PUC that hopefully we can get Henry and Ben to sign, that we need more transparency on what is in, you know, what circuit you are on and what else is in that circuit. Because you know, if you know that the lines are going through the canyons, then you have an understanding, and the high winds, those go off. But if you have no idea what else is on your circuit, then you have no idea when they're going to be shut off. But they are moving forward with undergrounding. We hope that they are more transparent. Apparently they also had some problem populating some spreadsheet, and so the notices of the potential power shutoffs didn't go out to as many households as they should have, and that's why a lot of people didn't have advanced warning. So this is definitely something we're going to be really laser focused on, and, you know, try to make sure that that Edison is a better actor, because with this fire, it was really terrible in many respects, and we had folks that had power off for, I think, 9 or 10 days straight. So we just can't tolerate that.
Hi, Jackie, it's Gina. Oh, yeah, we have one more question, and then I think we're going to let Jackie go.
Thank you so much. So this is Diane Moss. We met briefly at a fundraiser. I'm one of the many that you've met. And I've been in energy policy for the last 18 years, and I'm right now researching undergrounding for a project at UC Berkeley. And I'm a big proponent. I've been talking to the PUC about this for years, about undergrounding on some of our highest threat lines. One thing I haven't looked into this in detail, but I'm just going to bring it up. The one place that undergrounding is tricky, it could be hazardous, is right at the coast, because it is prone to flooding. This is what they've seen on the East Coast. So I think this needs to be looked into. I definitely think we need to have undergrounding, but we need to be careful that the decisions that are made are reasoned and safe, and not just reactive. And it's a really big conversation. What we do with SCE's undergrounding plan, and how we, how that gets influenced, and how the legislature can influence it. One of the issues on cost I'll bring up, it is expensive and it is time consuming, but as a long-term solution, it is the only way to stop the power shutoffs and to stop the ignitions, which are responsible for 40% of the damage of wildfires from 2017 to the early 20s. So it's compelling. And also on Thursday,
the PUC is going to probably vote to require ratepayers to pay back about $2 billion of the Thomas Fire liability. And they're going to be asking for over $5 billion of the Woolsey Fire liability. So if anybody sued Edison and got money for that, you're going to be paying back some of that through your rates. And they're doing that because they're so afraid of protracted legislation that would potentially be even more expensive for legislators. So this is, I mean, for ratepayers. So this is a really difficult situation. But the kind of twisted silver lining is that it starts to make undergrounding look a little less expensive than it did before. Also, the cost of PSPS, the cost of the public health problems caused by wildfires, the cost for fighting these wildfires, it starts to look less expensive when you're seeing this more holistically. I'm going to shut up because this is a really passionate subject for me. It's really late and I could go on and on. But I'll just
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to Jackie for being here tonight with us. And I also wanted to extend a personal thank you for dealing with me during the fires. She was great at communicating, and I don't know if some of you know, behind the scenes when we were all going crazy and confused about the gas shut off, Jackie was in Sacramento trying to get answers for us and helped, I think, get things turned back on for us. So I really appreciate that. Thank you. Oh, okay, we have one more question, then we're gonna let you go.
Is there any time estimate for when the geology people are going to remove the debris? And I understand that PCH is going to be a mess because of the big trucks hauling everything away. So is there any estimate on how long it's going to take them to do that one stretch of PCH that's really blocking us? Is there, and are there funds to pay for it?
So at least I have an answer on the funds. Before President Biden left, he said that that basically the U.S. government would pay 100% of the cost of cleanup, and that is very unusual. In general, it's a 75-25% split. So that's the good news on that. The first phase is, of course, they are getting the household hazardous waste off. So Cal EPA is going to go through all the sites. We've heard estimates of, 6 weeks to 6 months. I don't think it'll take 6 months. I know that with the mountain fire, they have already removed all debris. Now, obviously, that was many less homes. But it does show that you can get that done in a few months, and so but they have not been more. They have not committed to any more transparency about their timeline after the toxic household debris is removed, and apparently they can do about 3 households in a day with one team, and so it depends on how many people they're willing to commit to cleaning that up. After that's done, then you have the debris removal, and the estimate from the I think it was operating engineer or the engineers. I'm forgetting, it's late at night. Was that could take up to 18 months, but people are going to have an option to do it by themselves, to hire an outside contractor to get that done. I would say if you want it done for free, then sign up for the government's cleanup, and hopefully if your community is organized and there's a whole block of homes that have already done the hazardous waste, and a whole block of homes where everybody has signed the release to let the government on the property, and that those homes will be done much more early in the cycle. But that's the question I've been asking the whole time, because we need to make sure that residents have their properties cleared, and that the rebuild can happen as soon as possible. These are the parts that need to be taken care of so folks can get on with their lives.
Thank you.
All right. Good night, everybody.
And
And thank you for sending Ryan
us.
to us.
It's been amazing.
Yeah, I'm sure Ryan can answer all the questions better than I can.
He's doing a great job. Okay, thank you. And I was just-
Corey, do you have a question?
I've lost my house twice up the county line, so I'm Ventura County, which is obviously has nothing to do with anybody here. But I did want to say I went to all the meetings. They were all saying we're going to clear the debris, pay for it 100%. And I kept saying, well, does that mean you're going to take out the foundation as well? Yes, they will. They take everything out. And that would have cost me an extra, at least $500,000 to put new caissons, new foundation in. I said, no, you know, my original house was 1984. I had everything tested, everything but one very tiny slab tested okay, and I was able to keep the foundation. So it's not a blanket okay to just have the government come in and take everything away. You really have to question this. Secondly, I was out without power for many days, but prior to this fire, I had bought this wonderful little solar generator called EcoFlow. And I actually now have bought 2 of them, but the whole kit with the solar panels, the little generator cost $700, I think. My extra generator cost $400. And I had internet and a little tiny refrigerator and everything but a microwave. You can't do high-powered things, but it was great. So you with gas and generators, I would look into that. That's why I bought it. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey, and thank you, everyone. I know we are going a little over our scheduled time tonight, but it has been a very enlightening and illuminating conversation. So if it's okay with everyone, I'd like.
But I think I was just going to say our mayor of Malibu has been waiting
We
very
do have Mayor Doug
patiently.
Stewart, and if Diane and Matthias have any more words to share on their experiences, I'd like to hear from them as well. And we have plenty more food in the back. Oh, and Candace to speak on an event this weekend.
I'll get to your question in just a minute. Let me answer some questions that were asked. And I have to say, our assembly member, our senator, our supervisor, they have all been extremely helpful to us, and we've been working as a team. And one of the things that I want to answer, let's start off with undergrounding. We worked with Southern California Edison on 2 things that are now coming to fruition. They will be undergrounding the burn areas starting at the eastern end, and those will be completed within 3 to 4 months. They are going to accelerate all the undergrounding for Malibu in proportion to that. That was supposed to be a 2026 event. It's now a 2025 event. And the way they're going to do it is they're going to put, instead of putting the poles back up, the houses that are still there that are going to be occupied, they're going to bring SCE generators to those homes until they can get them on the undergrounding. Then they're going to keep working their way west. Now, the power shutoffs, part of the problem for that is the Latigo substation. Everything feeds out of that like a hub. And when they cut off, because the upper part of that has got high winds, then it takes off the cutward circuit, for example. In order to solve that problem, they've got to run a second bypass line down PCH so they have an alternate A or B circuit. And that's being worked on, but there's some issues about that because it's not in a very high fire zone. But they are aggressively moving on that. Second thing, there's a big difference in our situation on power shutoffs than when we were at Woolsey. Woolsey, the power went off because the fire burned it off. Now we're in preemptory shutoffs, and we're seeing a different set of circumstances. The shorthand for this is they have transferred their risk mitigation to us, and the risk mitigation is horrible. What you have is a third world country. If you've heard any of the interviews I did on TV, the third world country situation, we have no power, we have no internet, we have no cell phones, we have no landlines, we can't make a yes, but there's plenty of smoke. And I will tell you that on Tuesday night when we had the Palisades fire, I was in the emergency operations center that we had to evacuate out of Malibu City Hall. We hustled it over to Westlake Village, and in the process, we got 2 notices. One was from the sheriff's department that said it looks like we're going to lose the rest of Malibu. And the fire chief goes, I think we could stop it at the Franklin burn scar, but be ready to evacuate all of Malibu at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm sitting in the EOC now at Westlake Village, and it's midnight, and we're watching and hearing the radio traffic about how we're doing on that Franklin burn scar. I do not ever want to have another mayor have to figure out how we're going to evacuate half of this town at 2 a.m. in the morning with nothing. And we're going to work on that diligently, because it was more than I wanted to handle. We know some things that we're going to be doing for that, but it wasn't going to be until probably the end of this year. All right, so that's one thing. Now, the other thing that was brought up about, rebuilding. The city has traditionally, well, at the Woolsey Fire, waived all the fees. I can't speak for the other council members, but I'm pretty confident we're going to get that in place as well. Second additional item, the city staff we've got 120 employees. We had 15 to 18 people in the Emergency Operations Center from about 2/3 of the time since Franklin, almost the entire time, running 24 hours a day. We brought in mutual aid people from around the state and around the Southern California, as well as some contract people. So the Emergency Operations Center has been running the city. And kind of like a duck, you see what's on the surface. Underneath is a lot. And we've been planning to be ready for exactly where we are today and moving forward. I call it the 4 Re's. We have to restart, rework, repopulate, rebuild. And that is underway right now. At the town hall meeting on Saturday, we talked about the fact we're going to set up a separate office for rebuilds. The terrifying thing about that is, somebody pointed out, you didn't say it was a temporary office. You said it's the office. It's going to be on the campus, as we call it, over at the UCLA building where the old city hall was. We've got some space we're going to rent there. We're bringing in additional employees. And one of the beauties about the city of Malibu, thanks to our predecessors in the city councils, as well as good fortune, we have reserves. And we can afford reserves. So they will pay for some of it, but they'll pay for repairs and things like that. But when we waive the fees, well, we don't know how much they're going to pay. They'll pay for things to get fixed. They're not going to pay for things to be rebuilt necessarily. So we're going to be waiving the fees. We're going to accelerate. And talking about the cleanup, one of the things we worked out yesterday afternoon, and don't believe everything you see on Nextdoor or so forth, I'm not the villain that you think I am. I'm not really a nice guy. My wife says I'm a nice guy, but you've seen me before, kids. Anyway, the point of this is, yesterday afternoon, EPA and the county advised that they had decided where they were going to put the first phase cleanup site for household goods. If you listen to some of the stuff on Nextdoor and so forth, it's a waste dump. It's not a waste dump. What it is, it's a home hazardous materials that are being picked up out of the houses, like paint, propane tanks and junk like that. If it's been burned, it gets sealed at the site. If it's not burned, it gets put in a container truck, taken to this transfer site, which would be at the old Topanga motel site, where every day they'll assemble it, sort it, and take it away every day. And it's going to be on a pad and so forth. EPA has done this before. It is a transfer site. It's going to look very similar to what we do when the city does household waste disposal at City Hall. So, and here's the best part. Because of all the movement we're doing, it looks like the first phase for this household waste removal will be done by the end of February. Not 6 months, but 6 weeks, 5 weeks. They're bringing in 1,000 EPA employees and I think it's 60 work teams to hit this hard, because you can't get the debris removal until you get phase 1 out. As phase 1's a bad word. I'm calling it first phase because there's a different definition for phase 1, but first phase. The beauty of this is we've already got the right of entry forms out, and if you haven't filled it out yet, get it filled out. It's not that you're committing to do the cleanup by the Corps of Engineers or your private person. It's just to get them in so they can get the crud out of your property. there is not a plan, there's not anything going to happen to that site on debris removal. The way the debris removal is going to work is they'll take it off the site, put it in a truck, and they refer to it as a burrito wrap, where they wrap the truck up and it drives to a different site. So yes, there's going to be trucks on PCH. Next thing, PCH access. This morning, I believe the school kids in that were at Santa Monica got an escort by the sheriff's department to come in with teachers and so forth. Just as a side note, they prepared for it to be a traumatic experience for these kids. You can close the windows and keep the dust out, but you can't close the blinds. And I know I've taken 2 tours down PCH, and you can't find where you are. And those poor kids, you know, that's Joey's house, and that's, you know, Peggy's house or whatever. It's tough on them. So they had adults and adults and counselors on the buses today. This is the first part of this. In my tours on PCH, there's probably 50,000 cones. I'm not kidding you. 50,000 orange cones. The thing is, a chicane. You cannot get through there at more than about 25 miles an hour because there's power poles down, there's construction equipment. It's going to be a while. And even when we get it done, it's going to be probably 2 lanes at best case, because you're going to need all 5 lanes plus some parking to get everything cleaned up and worked on, not to mention the construction. So quickly on the rebuilds, we have gotten tremendous support. And I will say that Jackie Irwin, Ben Allen, Lindsay Horvath, the city of Malibu has been in Gavin Newsom's ear. And we were there, all the days have run together. I don't even know what day it is anymore. The Sunday morning after the fire, I think is when Newsom put out the notice that the coastal rules were not going to apply. And yes, it's in the local coastal plan, but the emphasis on it was the governor says it's not going to apply. And he has since strengthened that over and over again. We have had the Secretary of Conservation, who has CAL FIRE, Coastal Commission, as well as the parks, in City Hall twice in the last, I've met with him twice. I've met him once somewhere else, and we've had him at City Hall talking about exactly what we're talking about here. We are getting tremendous support at the state level, tremendous access. I'm not going to say we can get everything we want, but they're certainly listening, and we're asking, and that's the key thing here. As time goes by, we say, we need this, we need this, we need this, and they're going, we'll try and get it for you, we'll see what we can get, and boom, boom, boom. And this is a very dynamic situation. I got criticized the other day because I didn't tell somebody about this waste site. Well, 2 weeks ago, it was they needed a staging site. That's all we heard about. And then about 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon, they said, we're going to put it at the Topanga Motel. Bang. This is the way this is moving. We are fighting a fire. We're fighting rebuilds the same way. Quick, quick, quick. Let's go, let's go, let's go. I've heard every phrase from full throttle to all gas, no brakes. I don't care which one it is. That's the way we're going. The beauty of this is your city staff has been totally dedicated. These people, I have to say, they've worked their rear ends off. They're exhausted. I mean, Monday night, the sheriff's department, I don't know if anybody was there, but Sergeant Sutherland was there, who's our liaison. He should have gone home. And we talk about the firemen, you know, you need to do this for the firemen and so forth. My gosh, it's the sheriff's deputies that are sitting in a patrol car in the cold and the rain. And when they say, you know, we're going to send food to the firemen have mess tents. The guys in the sheriff's car have the lunch that maybe somebody packed for them. And the fireman gets to sleep in a bed, the sheriff's department is sleeping in a car. Help these poor guys out, all right? So that's kind of the quick story. And I will tell you this, at the town hall meeting we had Saturday night, the intention there was to be informational. We're not there to sing Kumbaya. We spent 5 hours trying to answer questions, and we got every person's question. 600 people attended that. We had about 100 questions. We think we answered all of them, but at the same time, and by the way, we learned a lot of things from Woolsey. We did a lot of things, and we've done a lot of things right, and we learned a lot of things we need to do better. I hope that we never have to have another fire, but on the same time, we're gonna have to be better at our game. We were good this time, we've got to get better. And this rebuilding process is gonna be the same thing. I'll say this to anybody, and I've talked to some of the builders and people around town, and you can see everybody's got a caution this to everybody. Everybody has an agenda. But we're representing the entire town, not the person that talked to us last. And when we make decisions, they've got to be for the entire city. The rebuilds with that separate office, you want to do a rebuild plus 10%, you're going to be on the track that's fast. And we're going to do everything we can, especially with the Teflon spray we've gotten from the governor's office and on down. We're going to be able to move those quickly. But if you want to do that dream house that you always wanted, or you want to buy a couple lots and we're going to put them together, and by the way, you know, I just want to do this, you're at the back of the line and you're going to start all over again. All those waivers for coastal and all like that doesn't apply to you. We want to get our families back in these houses. We want to get our kids back in the schools. We want our city back. And I will also tell you that one of the most important things to do in our city is to go buy something in our town. We've got we figure there's Chamber of Commerce figures there's 1,000 people whose lives depend on working in Malibu. Now, some of them are tip waiters. Some of them is a valet parker. Somebody could be a bagger at the grocery store. I don't care. And they could be working in your house. They could be your gardeners. And by the way, think about all the landscapers and housekeepers and everybody else who's living, you know, week to week, who doesn't have an employer anymore. We've got to help those people out. And one of the things that's right. And one of the things we want to do is to get at least the city bus to come in back and forth. One of the ideas we put on the table, and I don't know if this is going to work, is to have a escort system where you've got an ID card, and at the top of the hour, you meet at Will Rogers, and you line up there, top of the hour, 2 sheriff's cars or whatever, take you to the west side. Bottom of the hour, you repeat it going the other way, back and forth, get the buses in here and so forth. But this is going to be a difficult road for a long time. Now, I go back to the people that need to work here. One of the things that we've talked about in our sessions is, and I say this as a former banker, nobody ever went out of business because they lost money. You go out of business because you run out of money. And we're trying to make sure all the businesses and a lot of these people are still paying off Woolsey loans. FEMA, small business, even the Red Cross has got money for your workers. If you know people whose help doesn't have that job anymore because the every other Thursday job is burned out or whatever, tell them to talk to the Red Cross. FEMA will give a one-time grant of $770 to people. It's enough to tide you over. And it's the difference between having food on your table or not. So we need to help our worker bees. And let's help our stores. You know, at the Emergency Operations Center, when it came time, by the way, they all get fed really well. But then again, they're there all night long too. When you order 15 pizzas, we ordered them local. When it came time for sandwiches, probably they don't eat healthy, it's all crap, but it tastes good. We ordered everything local. Try and do the same thing. All right. So that's my spiel. And if you got questions, I'm glad to answer them. I will say I've been at the EOC every day or at City Hall every day. Some of our other council members have been doing the same thing. It's just been a hard road to hoe. Most of the city councils that Malibu has had maybe one disaster in their term. We've had 3 already. So it's not easy.
Well, thank you, John.
All right, don't thank. I appreciate that, but let me tell you, the real people you need to thank are all the volunteers. Like the CERT team was there today, handing out IDs. The volunteers on patrols, they've been working as hard as the deputies. The city staff, and everybody has been working their rear ends off. Those are the people you need to thank. And I especially want you to know that the assistant city manager, Joe Tony, and deputy city manager, Alexis Brown, they have been there every day. Everybody is exhausted. You call there and they sound tired. They're way tired. Okay.
what do you know about what feds are going to give us?
Mhm. Okay, there's two things to what the feds will do. You got FEMA and EPA and all this that are taking care of this. So that's almost like grants.
But FEMA really is not that much money.
Up to $2 million for,
Well, an individual needs it, to get the 700, then you get another.
hold on a second. There's up to $2 million loans at 2.5%.
Okay.
All right, and there's money, this is where I encourage people that have, even if you don't really all need it, go to the Disaster Recovery Center over in West LA. They've got a one-stop shop there. We've got Malibu people there. Talk to them. Tell them what you need. And a lot of people are going to have gap funding. What I mean by that is, let's say you've got a $2 million policy on your home and it's going to cost you $3 million to rebuild it or whatever. You may be able to get some money to do that bridge on that. Go talk to them, or at least find out who to talk to when you come up to that number. And that's the FEMA guarantee. I'm not going to say the guarantee, but that's the FEMA bank. Now, the other side of this is, what are you going to get in cost recovery? You know, those 18 pizzas that I talked about, those are going to reimburse us from the federal government. Maybe a couple of years from now, they're going to reimburse us for it. And the same thing is true for road repairs. If you go on PCH, you know that wooden barricade down near Big Rock, the 1982 landslide, that all burned up. It's being put back together today by our emergency workers out of the city. Except an interesting thing is that isn't owned by Caltrans. It's not owned by the city. It's owned by the private property owner. So we're sticking all the wood back in there so the hill doesn't fall down. And we're going to get reimbursed from that from FEMA. So it's stuff like that we're going, full bore. And the city is operating what is called the NIMS system, National Emergency Management System. Anybody that's in CERT or is in ARIES, the Amateur Radio Emergency Service, which Bill is involved in and I'm involved in. He's 22 out of Wasdale Sheriff's Station. You get a couple of ham radio operators together, you start talking about antennas, but that's another story. The point of this is, if you know about the system, it has this national system that's scalable. And Malibu adopted that after the Woolsey fire. And instead of having nobody at the incident command centers, we had somebody at the incident command centers. We had 9 people working this fire from a disaster management system. For the Woolsey fire, we had 1. So this is an entirely different arrangement, different focus, different management style, everything. And one of those things in that management system is accounting, so you can get all your money back. So if you were to look at a picture of our emergency operations center, they all wear vests. I'm logistics, I'm operations, I'm public information. Over in the corner, and they have green vests, is finance. And they're writing down all the bills. So, yeah.
Well, I'm just gonna kind of guess what I heard Jenny mumbling about a little bit here, but no, I'm with you. I know. Well, I think we're talking
I
about
know
Donald
we're
Trump.
about out of time, but
Yeah.
I would just say that thank you for all of the discussion about the city and the state and the county. We're dealing with a federal situation that's really dire. And we're looking at the references to FEMA, which is a cornerstone upon which multiple agencies operate and funds are directed through FEMA to the states. And right now, we're being threatened with FEMA being dismantled. You just referred to the EPA, which is, I understand the, removal of the, all of these obstacles to rebuilding during this crisis. It's a FEMA declared crisis. If FEMA doesn't declare it a crisis, and if our president and our judicial is disempowered, and our Congress is disempowered because the funding is coming directly through the office of the president, we're going to have some trouble. And so I just hope that we're not, I feel like Alice and I just dropped down the hole in Wonderland, and that we're all talking without addressing the big, big elephant in the room, Democrats. You know, if this is where we're, you know, using our energy rather than, you know, what'd you say, Hap? Okay. Exactly, exactly. I fully know that. Yeah, it's not Kentucky. We're going to be a sanctuary state. Yes, yes, all of that.
I think that's why he said all of a sudden, you're gonna get everything you want. You know what that means?
I guess the only question for someone at the city level, and you know what's going on, the things that we've heard, the threats, the rhetoric, the tweets, do we need to be worried about that? Is your gut instinct that that's just rhetoric and it's not really?
You're asking me a very political question. Let's put it this way. I think one of the European leaders had a great comment the other day that I've repeated several times. You can't take what Donald Trump says seriously, but you have to take Donald Trump seriously. And I know when I was doing interview, I've been interviewed several times by CNN and BBC and so forth. They've tried to drag me into, you know, what do you think about insurance, or what do you think about Trump? And I go, look, we're not here. We're here to solve the problem we have today. I have, as mayor of Malibu, I've got over 10,000 residents and a bunch of other people that depend upon the city of Malibu, and that's what we're going to take care of. And you know, I will tell you, we're getting. I feel like sometimes we're being hit with a hot towel. Sometimes, you know, several times a day, because other things come up, but we're trying to manage it through. And so far, the federal, like the Corps of Engineers, we've got the Corps of Engineer colonel that did Maui, and he's going to do the cleanup. But the one thing that you got to remember, the fire we had, Palisades fire and Eaton's fire together, are 16 times the Maui fire. So, you know, if you want experience, we got the right guy probably. I mean, who calls Central Casting, who else you're going to get? But they have given us everything we need. And when you talk about the threats and so forth, until the spigot goes dry, I'm going to keep getting the water out of it, and I'm going to take care of our residents. Yeah. And that's what we want to do. You don't want to find me. No, right. Well, I've got this day job that I'm supposed to be doing, but being mayor pays really well. And my quick line is, by the way, city council members in Malibu get $562 a month. Hey, yes. I know. I've had car allowances bigger than that, and my joke has been, you know, I'm doing it for the stock options. So just. Yeah, you've been there. Oh, all right. Well, all right. I'll get personal and tell you about my house. My house was built built it in 2000. We've been there 25 years. It's located in Latigo Canyon, and it's had a fire burn from the Corral fire burned up and somewhat over it. And we also had the Woolsey fire burn and took out the house across the street and houses on the other side of us. The house is stucco. The eaves are stucco. The tiles are concrete. There's leaf guards in all the gutters. The vents in the attic are the kind that if heat hits it, they shut. They melt. It's a honeycomb thing. All right. And I have inside sprinklers. There's defensible space all around the house. One of the things that we talk about as being one of the future things is called Zone Zero around your house. It's the CAL FIRE and everything, getting all this pushback on it, which is devastating because what it is the first 5 feet next to your house needs to be non-burnable, non-flammable. And it can be gravel or it can be some kind of plants. I encourage you to go on YouTube and look at the CAL FIRE video on embers hitting your house. Imagine taking the biggest barbecue you can find and throwing all those hot red embers at your house, and where do they drop? Right to the bottom. And if you've got flammable brush or anything else, you've just set a campfire. So those are the kind of things, plus the defensible space all around my house. I push it all back about 200 feet. And yes, I have a pool fire pump that I leave out for the firemen and it's been up, we just put it away a few days ago. Yes, at the Woolsey fire, a volunteer fireman came up, and because the area was burning around the house, it was still in the defensible space. He turned on the pump and it puts out 150 gallons a minute. It's a Honda water pump, sits in the pool, gas powered, cranks it up, and saved all the landscaping and saved the house next door. But it could have made it by itself. It would have just burned up the exterior landscape. Got it. Yes, he can. The fire department can. Call the local. You're in 71's territory. Go down. You're 71, right? It's the nearest fire. Go down and see the captain. Tell him, look, this is what I got. Show us some pictures. Go. Hmm. Well, if Williams was still like this, I guarantee you, Drew Smith will pop out of his head. So, and by the way, we got some of the best firefighters, captains. Drew Smith is nationally. That's our fire chief in the area. He is nationally known for his skills in fire management. He's called the fire whisperer around the country. Fire whisperer. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, anybody have any questions you want to ask me? I mean, just people on Zoom or anybody. Right.
When they do the removal of everything, and they're gonna lay the underground lines, and they gotta do the water, and they gotta do the electric. That's all. Is there a way that the contractor could say, yeah, it's gonna be done in 5 weeks? So it's gonna be even longer because first the hazardous waste, then the cement and all that, and then the digging of the lines and everything, rerunning everything.
Yeah, but the intention, like with Big Rock, is to get in there now and put the undergrounding in, fix the infrastructure. All the storm in Big Rock, all the storm drains are burned out. The dewatering system, which is critical for Big Rock, is burned out. It's all, you've got the underground wells, but all the pumps and the electrical system on top are gone. So everybody's moving at light speed. So when you say how fast is it going to take to open up PCH, the kind of damage that's been done is not something you put back tomorrow.
And then the septic system, all septic system. I just read about that today.
Yeah.
They have to be done, or they have to put sewer in. Where are they gonna put the sewer?
Well, the sewer would be probably last on the list. Well, it won't have probably be back to septic. And that's one of the other things we're working on. And this is where we're getting great cooperation at the state. The idea, if you look at, and we're all in a coastal zone plan. Malibu and Avalon are the only 2 cities in the state that are in an entire coastal zone. So we're governed entirely by the coastal agreement. So when Newsom says we're going to waive the requirements because of the fire, it goes all the way down to the on-site waste treatment system. And if I'm not going to pick on any bureaucrats, but you say, well, you don't need a permit to rebuild your house, but because you're going to have to put a new water sewer system in, you're going to have to get a coastal development permit. And we're knocking that out one by one. Monday night, we had a resolution to set the framework to get the amendments to the local coastal plan so we could do all this right now. And we're setting the stage with the coastal commission. As I said, I've seen Wade Crowfoot twice now. I hate to say this, I'm on first name basis with some of these guys. 2 months ago, I didn't know them, they didn't know me. Now it's, hey, Wade, Doug, yeah, Doug's calling. I don't know. Right now, it's get Edison, and throw the conduit in. It's like what we did for the traffic synchronization. We laid extra conduit so that we could put anything else in there. And there's a whole nother project for having city-owned fiber optic around the city. And that's what we're working with the COG, the Council of Governments, for that, to link all this traffic synchronization fiber together, because there's so much excess capacity. We're looking at trying to sell that extra capacity to competitors of Frontier. Well, yeah. We are, and I'll tell you, one of the things that saved our bacon in this fire, about 9 months ago, the city finally got approval for what's called the RICS radios. It's a radio interface communication system. And it's a honking big walkie-talkie that I've had to borrow it because I had no service at the house and they wanted to keep calling me. The battery lasts about 9 hours. Beeps in the middle of the night, keep it charged. But this allowed us to communicate with everybody. The fire trucks, the fire department, the fire captains, everybody, it's like you're on a common telephone system. And you punch it up and you go, I want to talk to the incident commander at Zuma. Beep, beep. Incident commander. So instead of having to figure out how you're going to get this radio over to them, get them on the phone, we had that. It saved our bacon. It's fire. That's great, but it's a resident. All right, well, let me tell you the thing we're working on. Yeah, I know you guys want to go home. I want to go home. But I know. I know this. We're living in the wrong age here. If you go back to what we had 30 years ago, this is really cool. But people were telling me how they had radio, listen to your radio, and I'm like. By the way, the city gave away AM hand radios. But let me take you quickly to where we want to go next. And you can thank Hans Letz for part of this. KBOO was originally designed, if you look at the actual, it's a nonprofit, I think it's called Zuma Emergency Radio LLC, is who owns KBOO. It's a nonprofit. And cool little deal.
The advice the city gave us last year with the warnings, it would go up all the time on nothing.
Oh, the weather radio was a joke, yeah. But now the idea is, those of you that remember your FM radio in your car where it used to have at the bottom, and it would say, Fleetwood Mac is playing Rumors or whatever. That's called a subcarrier. And all the FM radio stations have that subcarrier. In Alabama, for example, all the public radio stations have that subcarrier dedicated to emergency signals. And what you do, you put a box in your house. It's about like the size of a smoke detector. It can either be mounted, hardwired like a smoke detector, or plugged in. And it silently listens for any FM radio signal it can receive. And in Malibu, that would be KBOO. And we're putting a booster in. In fact, the antenna will probably be up in another month, too late for this round, to cover eastern Malibu, because you didn't get over there. And what this would do, whether it's KBOO or K-Rock or whoever it might be listening. And we'd be able to go from the Emergency Operations Center, or even by a cell phone by somebody that had the codes located in Thousand Oaks or wherever, they could draw a box and say, Point Dune Park, Big Circle, You send a message to these boxes and those boxes only that would say, and it's like the old voice and tone pagers. Now I'm really dating everybody. And it would go, this is Malibu Emergency Radio. And it'd be like my voice, but if somebody was, there's a brush fire approaching your property. Everyone evacuate now, turn right at PCH and head to Will Rogers. Take your emergency radio with you. And this would be, everybody would have that. You could rip it out of the wall socket, put it in your car, drive down the street, and they'd say, everybody that's now at the Ralph Shopping Center, stay there, remove, you know, we'd be able to give you real-time updates. And it runs on the battery. It self-charges. But the, yeah, and the beauty of this is 21st century stuff. We talked about having sirens. Well, that's the 1950s. I remember when there's still some of those around. Those of us that remember Conelrad, all right? But this would be an opportunity to have 21st century capabilities and the ability to talk to everybody, and we make sure that you got your signal and it's not dependent upon KBOO, because the other radio stations would have the same signal. It's operated, it's a really cool system. It's up in some of the counties in Northern California. And honestly, for the radios are about $50 to $100. Get a grant from somebody, we'll give one to everybody in the city. Yeah. I don't, this is a problem. Go back to my story about 2 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday morning. Like I said, I would never want another city mayor to be sitting there looking at each other and we're going, and Jen C2 said, be ready to evacuate the entire town. And it would have burned all the way to Magoo. Yeah.
We can have many other meetings to talk about all of the things we can do better, but we are running short on time tonight. And we do have a couple more quick announcements we want to make. Candace, that's all you.
Hi, everybody. We talked about everything today, but the Pontoon Club Residents Association, everyone wants to do something. And so what we came up with an idea is that the people that, the fire victims, what we do on Saturday and Sunday here in the club is that we're donating, we're asking everybody to donate, we're donating kitchen items, bathroom items, and bedroom items. These are things that people will need. It's like a startup kit. So they won't have to go to and buy these things again. So it's happening February 1st and the 2nd. And if you have anything to donate, you can drop them off here at the Pontoon Club right here and from 4 to 7. And Saturday, we'll be setting up and everything will be here. So it's just want to invite you guys and invite everybody else to come along and support the ones that need to be supported, because us right here at the Pontoon Club, we are blessed. And when you bless, you become a blessing. And thank you, Doug.
Thank you, Candace, and the Point Doom Club Residents Association, and for pulling this together this coming weekend, and for all of the other local organizations and bigger organizations, especially that have stepped up to fill in many of the gaps as needed with direct aid and everything else that it comes with. We have another resident in here who asked me to share about an organization that she has helped start after the Woolsey and Thomas fires called Help California. So there's some of these spread around. Also, of course, the Boys and Girls Club, Malibu Foundation, and many number of other local groups have stepped up and continue to step up. And for anyone who is in need of any additional resources, please continue to check out what they have to offer. And we will continue on our club email blast to include many links to these other organizations. Really quick, I also did want to mention that I'm sure many of you have heard and seen on some of our email blasts, but one of our board members, former club president, current club vice president, lifelong volunteer, and just overall good person, our buddy Lance Simmons, has gone through a lot in the last year and change. many of you know he had an accident being hit by a truck while he was cycling down PCH and has been recovering from that over the last 15 months or so, and recently lost his home and 99% of his possessions in the Palisades fire. And Lance is somebody like many in Malibu who is on a fixed income. He collects his pensions and may not have, he was a renter and a writer. He lost his whole collection of books that he had collected over his lifetime, many by, signed by friends of his. And any help we can do to support him, Gina and I have set up a GoFundMe. We've so far raised over 4,000 to support Lance, and we'd like to keep that going. So he can have a little hand up on this path to recovery. So anyways, I really want to thank everybody again, particularly our panelists up here and Diane and Matthias. Yeah, this, we do have this space. The management here has been very generous with allowing the Malibu Democratic Club and other local groups to use this space for community events. And so we can keep this conversation ongoing. One of our primary club purposes and missions is really facilitating communication between our elected officials, most of whom here are Democrats, and really connecting our elected officials in our community and making sure that there is a constructive dialogue always taking place both ways. And I believe we have accomplished that tonight with much insightful information from so many people who have experienced going through this in recent years, and being able to share that and share what you've learned with those who need support right now. So anyways, as we wrap this up tonight, really appreciate it all again. And for anybody who is not signed up for our email list yet, please grab either Gina or I, if you don't know how to do that after the meeting on your way out. We also have a QR code at the front here for anyone who would like to join the club or renew your membership. It is in the middle of all this annual membership renewal time, and March 1st is our deadline to submit our 2025 member list to the LA County Democratic Party. Of course, those who have been affected in the recent fires, we are happy to discuss any needs-based waiver of the membership fee, which has not gone up in, I don't know, 5 or 10 years at least anyways. One of the few things not affected by inflation recently. Right, and we have a board meeting scheduled a week from tonight, and that's something we will bring up on the agenda to formally waive that and support anybody who needs support joining our club. So thank you again. Gina, do you have any parting words for us? Okay, and thank you to Bill again for leading our live stream, and hope everyone gets home safe.